Hello and welcome to today's session on online lessons. Today's video is going to be split into 4 parts. The first part is going to be talking about just general topics. The second part is going to be talking about tech setup from very basic to optimal. Third part will be talking about other instruments and just providing some general ideas how to get around some of the troubleshooting you might have. The third part being how to deal with other instruments outside the piano and just giving some general knowledge on that and some tips and advice. And then finally, troubleshooting tips and just overall tips in general. So what I do want to mention is I decided to do this as a video and stream it so I could actually be alongside you if you have any questions or is there anything that I didn't cover, because there will be some things I don't get to cover. This topic has many layers when you start really digging into it. So I'm live streaming this video. I'll be right alongside with you, and I will make comments and answer questions as well. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so latency or lag time, that's a big one. So you first need to understand what it is. It's the delay of sound. It's the very basic definition of that. And I want you to think of it as we have 2 transmissions happening like this in terms of your the internet going back and forth, bandwidth traveling like this. And typically what happens at the very end of the internet stream, you know where your router is, to the student router, it's very strong, and then it gets weak in the middle. So that's where the latency typically occurs. Audio signal just takes a little bit longer to travel than a video transmission. So that's generally how it works. So how do we get around that? Well, if you do have a keyboard and your student has a keyboard, and if you can invest a little money in software, and so can the student, then you can actually get around that quite easily using Internet MIDI, which is a software that connects both keyboards together. This is for piano and keyboard teachers, obviously. And so we can dig into that further either in the comments or in a side thread. So that is an option. Especially if you have a student that will invest into technology along with you. So definitely look into that. So outside of that, and you have to use Skype for that particular application. Outside of that, we have to think of use creative solutions. So one solution that's been mentioned a bunch, I've mentioned it as well, is to have the student play along with backing tracks on their side. So it's still in real time. By the time it gets to you, you still hear the result of them playing along with whatever type of backing track it is. And when I say backing track, I'm grouping in all types of accompaniment, whether if it's like a band track or if it's a piano accompaniment. We're just talking about backing tracks in general. Well, how do you do that? Well, you need to set up a cloud, and you can set up a free cloud. I use Dropbox. And if you're watching this and if you use something other than Dropbox, like Google Drive, go ahead and let us know how that works for you. I've been using Dropbox for a long time. And then you invite them to a folder. They click on the email. And whatever you put in your Dropbox folder on your computer or your iPad is going to, or your tablet, is going to be there for the student. It's pretty easy to set that up. You don't have to be very techy to do that. And if you're not able to, then you can get someone to help you. You can get a student to help you, a spouse, a friend. So another way to get around latency is just to change your teaching approach. And a lot of jazz teachers do this. Call response exercises. As a vocal teacher or as an instrumentalist, non-piano, you can do this a lot. And I know that you guys are really wanting to focus on tone. That's a big thing. It's harder to get a tone with brass and woodwind than it is piano, actually, but we'll get to that later. So call response exercises, back and forth, back and forth. You're like getting into a groove with it. Think of it as teaching, phrasing or whatever, however you want to think about it. And so that way you're not playing together, but you can see immediate results. It's kind of like rote teaching, but in a different sense. Demonstration, back and forth, getting it locked down. So you're not playing together and being able to demonstrate the technique, the tone, whatever it is at that point, but you're using a different approach to achieve similar results. If you have fast upload speed, and your student does as well, you can get decent results. And I've played like a click in the background or a backing track in the background on my end, so the student plays with me, or I sometimes do it without a track, and I just have kind of these two times happening at the same time. One is slightly behind the other. And if you can keep your focus, if you're a multitasker and you can keep your focus like that, you can actually yield positive results there. The idea is for the student to be able to play along. Now it becomes more challenging to do more creative things like this in that manner, like improvisation. So that's why if you do try that, I would recommend setting a click track or metronome and playing along with that. So you always know where your downbeat is. You don't lose your downbeat. No matter what, the student's playing along with you. So that is another method as well. And then just trying to, kind of challenge latency. If you have fast upload speed, the other student has fast upload speed, see if it works. I've been able to do it a few times, but it's nothing that I depend on. So that's why we have to really stretch our thinking and figure out what's going to help us achieve similar results but go in a different direction with it. All right, so we're going to talk about the teacher station and really kind of talking about setting up the workstation, location, the logistics of that, and also like the general workflow. There was concerns about that. So, for the most part, I would say the first thing is make sure that your camera has a profile shot and you can see your upper torso, right? You can see arm movement, and you can use either side, right? So profile shot is very, very important, and make sure it's elevated somewhat. So that way you can see depth, and you want the same thing for your students. So that'll be something that you want to experiment with. Now, in terms of how to position everything, that should be pretty easy. Work within the space that you're given. Draw it out if you need to. My keyboard needs to go here, my desk needs to go here, so I'm going to put the device here, or I'm going to put my computer here. Plan it out, map it out. You need to take a little bit of time to figure that out, or some people just do it on the fly, however it works for you. The idea, though, is everything is within reach. So that's very important. Make sure everything is within reach, or you're going to be sliding the chair across the studio, or you're going to have to be reaching over here. You want everything to be somewhat condensed and to where you don't have to take time out to reach for whatever it is. So that's very, very important. And then in terms of using new technology, really all you're doing on the very basic level is after you sign in your video conference app, which I'm going to be talking about Zoom today, but after you sign in, there's really nothing you got to do unless you want to do some screen sharing or draw on the whiteboard and those type of things, annotations. And if you do that, then that's going to add to your workflow a little bit, and you just have to get used to that. But for the most part, If you have maybe a more old school system to where you write notes and you're more comfortable with that, then it's not going to really change your workflow at all. Okay? So, figure out how you want to do that. I would try to keep your system the same in terms of how you normally teach. The only thing that needs to change really is how you communicate. You need to practice this. So make sure you practice with your colleagues. Practice with students that that will help you in long-term students, or students that are tech savvy, or just like really good students that you trust, and work on the communication. You want to talk less, really. Okay, demonstrate more, talk less, and they will focus more. Okay, so I think that's enough with just like the basic ideas of the teacher station. Okay, so had a few questions about parents. Obviously, this is very important. We don't want to rush things, but we do need to put a plan in place. One of the questions was getting parents to value this option. So first off, I'm sure the parents didn't plan on having the students stop lessons. And I don't think they think it's a good idea to stop lessons regardless, especially if they're having to stay home. So putting that aside, if you want to take a value-based approach, their lessons are going to be recorded. So that's a big one right there. They get to review their lessons. I mean, there's so much value to that. And you got to really, really make sure you emphasize the lessons are being recorded and they can go back and review. It's going to improve their practice. Okay? Another thing, value of this is obviously the convenience part of it. They're not having to get out and go to your studio. They're not having to stop lessons. We're effectively being able to continue lessons. And you need to be confident with it. Even if you don't feel confident, you need to exude the confidence. Tell them what's happening and, explain the situation. And, this is going to be a temporary thing. And who knows, they might enjoy it so much that they want to do it full time. Obviously, that's up to you if you want to do that or not. I don't think there's going to be really a problem getting the parents to value the option. Now, there may be parents that feel like it's not as good. And so what you have to explain to them first off, it's not for the long term. And secondly, the students need to continue. This is the time to really practice and really dig in. They take advantage of the opportunity. I posted earlier today that, when you see this, it'll be yesterday, but I posted that, now's the time to put in, like a practice contest, do creative things to get the most out of their practice. And so I think if you really focus on those things and on the positives, and don't go into it thinking that they might stop lessons or they might not think it's as much as value, then you should have really good results. Okay, and then the technology part of it for parents, you need to, you can tell them how to do it over the phone. You can send an email, outline how to do it. You can make a little PDF. Use Microsoft Word or Notes or whatever program. Make it to where, or you can make a video if you have the capabilities of doing that. Make it to where it's easy for them. Okay. Now the other part of that is don't be completely on the dependent on the parents to put this in place. Most kids know how to do this stuff. I mean, they just get it. So if you give the instructions to the parents, but tell them, to have them be there in the process, but I'm sure if the kids do it, unless one of them's really tech savvy, that might be actually a really interesting process and kind of cool for them to do that and get them more engaged with it. So, and language barriers, that's a tough one. I've had to create a couple videos before and do subtitles. So upload to YouTube and add subtitles. With language barriers, also, maybe, I don't know if you have, if they have a parent friend who can communicate between both of you, or you can do text translate, like Google Translate, something like that, and make it very, very simple. So, and you talk to the parent who has, even if you're not used to talking to the mom or to the dad or the grandparent, talk to the one that you can communicate with best. And as a follow-up to that, there was also a question about the parents or the students not taking it seriously. And I've really never had that be the case at all in my 10 years of doing this. In fact, it's the other way around. They're more focused, especially the student. The environment is different, and they're just, something in their brain just clicks differently in terms of when you're communicating, and they have to zero in. And with the parents, look, it's all about the approach at the beginning of the process. Make sure they understand that you're going to be teaching the same way. It's just a different medium, okay? And if you come from a very positive angle, and then you very helpful in the transition, put some thought into it. So that's the really important thing. Don't rush to do this, okay? Especially during these times, you need to take a little bit more time. Even if you need to take maybe a week off to get set up, it's going to be better for you long term. So don't rush. Make sure that you take your time, and communicate a number of times with them. And I'm sure they're going to be very understanding of your situation as well, but also be understanding of their situation. Okay? Okay, so I am adding this to the mix because no one asked about internet. And here's the thing. Without good internet, you're not going to have good results, okay? No matter who you use. So that is the very foundation of good online lessons. Now, I know there's going to be some that have limited, internet speeds. So you just have to do your best with that. A general rule of thumb is you want to try to have 5 megabits of upload speed on both sides to pretty much guarantee that you're going to have a high definition type stream on both sides. That's still not a guarantee, but that's about, that's kind of that's the baseline there. There's always varying factors. Whether you're doing Wi-Fi, cell service, or you're wired into your router, it's all about the consistency of the upload stream. It's really what it comes down to. You have better chances. It's not a guarantee. You have better chances if you're plugged into the router. A lot of times that's not possible because who designs their house and positions the room where you're going to have the router in the same place where your music or teaching studio is? You just don't think about those things. So one thing that will help is to get a boost, a router booster. There's all different types, and I'll include that into my handout at some point next week. And the students, that's going to be one of the things that the students need to get. If you see poor connection, you've done everything on your end, then, and if they can, then you definitely want to boost their internet signal, Wi-Fi booster. So, okay, so how do you know that you're getting the results that you need? Well, there's a couple of speed test sites. With these sites, it'll tell you at the very moment what your upload and download speed is. It'll also tell you the ping speed. And you want your students to save that as a favorite and do that as well. If you have to do any troubleshooting with internet, then that's the surefire way to know which side it's on. The other thing is, like in Zoom, the internet connection, if there's a If it pops up, it's unstable. It's not always correct in terms of which side it is. So I've learned that out the hard way. So you want to double check. And so you just have it ready to go at a moment's notice if that happens. And hopefully it won't happen, or it won't happen frequently. Okay? It's going to happen occasionally at the very, very least.